Hello, and you're listening to Eco Justice Radio. We present environmental and climate stories from a social justice frame featuring voices not necessarily heard on mainstream media. Eco Justice Radio acknowledges that we recorded this show on the traditional territory of the Chumash people and all of their relatives in the place we call Santa Barbara, California. Welcome, I'm Jack Eidt. On today's show, Peace, Love, and Hate, a literary visit to San Francisco's hippie haven, we feature a conversation with literary author Max Talley about his latest novel set in Haight-Ashbury in 1969, mixed with voices and music from that era. Max Talley is an author, editor, musician, visual artist, and writing teacher. He's doing it all, who has published multiple novels, essays, and short stories, and won awards for his mix of literary, psychedelic, dystopian crime, sci-fi, and satirical works. His latest, which we will discuss today, are the story collection Destroy Me Gently, Please, by Serving House Books, and Peace, Love, and Hate, as in San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury, from Three Rooms Press. He resides in Santa Barbara, where we encountered him in, of all places, a noisy hotel lounge. We begin today's show with a little Grateful Dead, just after the passing of the amazing co-founder, Bob Weir. The Dead were leading the peace and love reality set around the Haight in the mid to late 60s, and were performers at the Summer of Love, where 75,000 people, young people, drove into San Francisco for free love and pretty amazing music. The social experiment of Haight-Ashbury had its shadow: overcrowding, drug issues, and the inevitable commodification that followed that began to erode that utopian promise. Max Talley's book takes in all of this world, the music, the freedom, and the excess. Dr. Timothy Leary, the controversial counterculture guru and psychonaut huckster, known for his 1967 Human Be-In pronouncement at San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, turn on, tune in, drop out. Later, facing years in jail, he sold out his cohorts to the FBI and was associated with the Central Intelligence Agency from the beginning.
Turn on, tune in, and drop out. Drop out of college, drop out of graduate school, drop out of junior executive, drop out of senior executive. Turn on, tune in, drop out.
A major civil liberties issue of the next decade will be the control and expansion of consciousness. Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, who also was known as Ram Dass, declared in a letter to the Harvard Crimson on their shuttered project studying the therapeutic potential of psychedelics, which was also a CIA project. Who controls your cortex? Who decides on the range of and limits of your awareness? If you want to research your own nervous system, expand your consciousness, who is to decide that you can't, and why?
The importance of that to me is that it was a demonstration on the part of the baby boom generation of their numbers, of their strength, of their clout, of their power, which is a straight quantity number. There were 76 million Americans born between the years 46 and 64. They were trained by Dr. Spock to be demand-fed. They were the first consumer species. They were the first electronic species. The very fact that you were an American and young meant that you deserved the world. And I don't apologize for being kind of goofy, because at the same time, we had Johnson running the country, sending 500,000 troops to Vietnam. We stopped that. And we had J. Edgar Hoover, total madman, running our secret police. So we did great, but I don't want to be held responsible for the day-to-day quotes, because literally we were out there in the front lines just making it up as we went along. And I give us this credit. We were willing to take risks. We were willing to be holy fools. We were willing to make asses of ourselves. But let's not hang these portraits of ourselves, making fools of ourselves, on the walls of the Smithsonian Institute.
Psychonaut ethnobotanist Terence McKenna
was not quite in Haight-Ashbury. He was more on the Berkeley side of things, but he was definitely involved. Here's a little piece of his post-mortem from the late 1960s of that movement, that revolutionary movement in the San Francisco Bay Area.
In 1971, I was 23, my brother was 19. I'd spent several years in Asia already, having been run out of Berkeley because of the revolution. And we were graduates of the LSD revolution, but it had left us wanting more, specifically wanting the kinds of experiences that the classical commentators on psychedelics described. And by that I mean people like Havelock Ellis in The Dance of Life, or S. Weir Mitchell, who wrote about mescaline. LSD for us never delivered visions. It delivered insight and feelings and complex thoughts, but not visions, not activity in the visual cortex that these classical commentators had led us to expect. And I had been in India for a number of years and pretty well managed to convince myself that whatever spirituality had ever been there, it had evaporated thousands of years ago, and that what we were left with was a very grasping and mendacious priestly hierarchy that was about as cynical as religion gets. And I was raised Catholic, so I know what I'm talking about. And so then we decided, well, where the gnosis must be is in the Amazon, where we knew there was a pristine Aboriginal shamanism based on hallucinogens.
Now, Allen Ginsberg and his masterpiece, Howl, he was at center stage at numerous milestone countercultural events. During the 1950s and 60s, his name made it onto J. Edgar Hoover's list of dangerous subversives. He wrote about his own experiences as a gay man, experimented with drugs, protested the Vietnam War, was clubbed and gassed at the '68 Democratic Convention in Chicago, studied Buddhism, toured with Bob Dylan, and recorded poetry and music with Paul McCartney and Philip Glass. This is Howl, a fragment from a reading at the Sixth Gallery in San Francisco in 1995.
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked, dragging themselves through the Negro streets at dawn looking for an angry fix. Angel-headed hipsters burning for the ancient heavenly connection to the starry dynamo and the machinery of night, who poverty and tatters and hollow-eyed and high sat up smoking in the supernatural darkness of cold water flats, floating across the tops of cities, contemplating jazz. The madman bum and angel beat in time unknown, yet putting down here what might be left to say in time come after death, and rose reincarnate in the ghostly clothes of jazz in the gold horn shadow of the band, and blew the suffering of America's naked mind for love into an Ailey, Lama, Lama, Sabachthani saxophone cry that shivered the cities down to the last radio, with the absolute heart of the poem of life butchered out of their own bodies, good to eat 1,000 years.
We're going to start with Peace, Love, and Hate.
So this section I'm reading, the main character in this story is Frederick Dorn, who manages an art gallery on Haight Street. He's aggrieved by all the crime, bad drugs, everything that's happening to the city and especially his street since the Summer of Love. So he helps the police get rid of one drug dealer named Ratman Rathkin. So once he does that, he opens up a Pandora's box where the West Coast mob and the police are asking him for favors he can't refuse. He tries to do all this stuff and keep it down on the down low because he doesn't want his friends to think he's a narc. He's not going to narc on people, but he's just trying to get rid of the violent crime and dealers who are dealing bad drugs. So this scene is when he goes to visit his friends at a warehouse abandoned theater where they all hang out before they go to concerts. So he's meeting his friends here, and some of his friends are starting to hear rumors about him, and this is him confronting one of those friends. Oh, also, he's pretending to be back with his ex-girlfriend, Allison, because she's being stalked by her psycho ex-husband. Dustin Blazer hung out in the back office writing manically, hoping to get articles published in Rolling Stone. 30 with thinning black hair on top and mutton chop sideburns jutting forward on his cheeks, Dustin could be a sweetheart or confrontational, depending on his mercurial moods. Hey, man, Dustin said when Freddie Dorn and Allie entered the theater through the side roll-up garage door. You're together again? Allie wrapped an arm around Dorn. I can't escape this guy. Dorn forced a laugh. Mingo worked in the corner. A giant, heavy-set Latino, he'd landed in the Haight after getting a dishonorable discharge from the Navy. With his bushy black hair combed forward Beatle style, he mumbled and grunted mostly, but possessed a good heart under his gruff exterior. Joanna did Tai Chi poses on stage. She named herself after a Dylan song and was always searching for magic everywhere. Signs of the occult, tarot cards, psychic readings, that was her trip. I was a bird in a past life, she told Allie as she danced and leaped about. Mingo, wearing a welder's mask, busied himself by spray painting a Ford Country Squire station wagon in primary day-glow colors. Mingo wants to discover America like the pranksters did, Moongirl said, in between blowing bubbles from a soap pan. In that car? Dustin smiled wide. I think America will discover Mingo first. No one ever knew when Dustin was high. He acted the same manic way no matter what. Drugs could not override his locomotion. When focused, he hammered away on a black manual Smith Corona typewriter. Same one as in the Don't Look Back film, Dustin once said. Bobby Nerwith gave it to a friend who sold it to me. Dorn, I need to talk to you alone. Dustin pointed toward the backstage. Are you going to get heavy? Allie lifted up her pink lens sunglasses. Never, Dustin replied. Just guy talk. No need to trouble your little chick mind. Screw you, you chauvinist, Allie said. Dorn walked with Dustin through layers of stage curtains into the office. What's this about, Blazer? Dustin scowled, then shoved Dorn against a wall. I hear you're a fucking narc now. He stepped back, hands clenched into fists. Are you trying to get something on me and squeal to the pigs? Dorn restrained himself. Total bullshit, man. He raised his fists in a defensive boxing stance, then bounced his weight from foot to foot. Yeah, I helped take down Ratman. He messed up Van Monk with bad acid, gave smack to Ramona. Remember how that ended? 'Cause I do. Dorn stopped moving. I don't remember you loving Ratman. What changed? Dustin laughed. Lay down your gloves, Muhammad Ali. He put on the bowler hat. I wouldn't cross the street to piss on Ratman if my pants were on fire. It's the precedent. First you finger a shithead, but maybe next time it's my dealer. Then a user. Dustin edged forward. Like me. Dorn grabbed a chair and held it up. Wrong, Blazer. I'd never turn in friends. You know things are worse in the Haight. Poison drugs, too much dope money, street people with nothing, bikers, robberies, rapes, kidnappings. Before getting here, I lived in Detroit. Dustin glanced at Dorn on the wood chair. The Haight is mellow in comparison. Comparison? Dorn said. This was supposed to be a utopia, man. Yeah, we shared that dream in '67, but it ended after the Summer of Love. Guess you missed the hippie funeral. Dustin perched on a high stool. Drop the damn chair. On your head if you touch me again. He kept it aloft. Blazer could lull you into lowering defenses, roll a friendly joint, then pounce. Dustin rubbed his mouth. Locals have seen weird people visiting your gallery. Plainclothes cops, too. That ain't right. I mean, I get it. You wanted to return things to the beautiful way it was. That's poetic, sort of stupidly heroic. Dustin gazed upward, expression wistful. But you can't put the evil genie back in the bottle, so you're walking a tightrope. Yeah, but you could help me, save the district. Help the pigs? They busted me for drunk and disorderly, for holding just 5 joints. Dustin sank his head into a hand. Why would you work with them? If you'd come to me first, said, hey, let's deep six Ratman, I would have dunked him in the bay myself. I didn't do that. He fell off the Golden Gate Bridge. Dorn watched Blazer. When the dude acted listless or weary, it was usually jive. That's what the newspapers said. But is that the universal truth? I mean, we came out here to cut through the lies with the help of Owsley. To find peace and love and brotherhood. Dustin sprang from his stool. Dorn brought the chair down on his head, breaking wood struts, busting the frame, the thing a flimsy piece of shit. Dustin grabbed at his skull, reeling, but soon launched onto Dorn, and they landed on the floor, swinging, clawing, and kneeing each other. Soon, Dorn found himself levitating. Mingo stood between them. The man, built like a defensive tackle, held them up by their collars, arm lengths apart. You want to kill someone? Mingo said. Start with me. We were fooling around, Mingo, Dustin said. Let me go, brother. Just joking. Jesus Christ. Allie pushed into the room. You guys are friends, supposed to be evolved, she said. Mingo let them loose, but remained on guard. We were fighting over you. Dustin smiled at Allie. I got jealous seeing you two back together. Allie appeared at Dorn. Is he for real? Never. Dorn straightened his clothes. Let's go. I don't need a lecture from him. He glared at Dustin. Remember, judge not, lest ye be judged. Yeah, quote the Bible, you hypocrite. Dustin wagged a finger. You know what Bobby Dylan said about businessmen drinking his wine? That's you, man. I'm happy to drink Dylan's wine, Dorn said. He's got money, so it wouldn't be your Mad Dog or Muscatel crap. Suddenly, the Chinese gong rang loudly from out on stage, and they both ceased arguing. To strike the gong meant whatever just happened had ended, a signal to the collective unconsciousness, to the hive mind assembled in the theater. They must move on post-haste to the next beautiful thing.
Wonderful. So we're here talking with Max Talley. Lots of people around because we're at a bar, which is exactly where we should be talking with this writer of multiple novels. His most recent is, of course, Peace, Love, and Haight, and that's Haight. Now, do we have a little playoff, Max?
Oh,
Peace, Love, and Haight.
Yeah.
Hate. I'm getting something there.
I think, I don't know, maybe we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we can talk about that. But that's his most recent novel. He's published a long list of really, you've created so many different worlds through your short stories, which you've been wonderfully prolific, and I really congratulate you for having a talent to write these things and also disseminate them. So welcome, Max.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We also have writer and editor Amy Cluck with us in the background, and she may weigh in. So we'll see. We have a little discussion here at the bar. So tell us about Peace, Love, and Haight.
Right.
I guess some people might call it a crime novel, but I wouldn't call it that.
No, the publishers are selling it that way, and that's fine. You have to do that as a publisher. You have to get it into sort of a corridor.
Yeah.
I think of it as just about that time and place and everything going on in the last 6 months of 1969. So throw in, sure, there's crime, but there's drugs, there's music, there's art, there's communes, there's cults, there's, flim-flam people, there's so many different elements. There's the poster art that was going on, there's the concerts, the big rock festivals that were just starting then. So I wanted to throw all that in kind of a kitchen sink so that you felt like you were immersed in it.
Yeah, I love you. So you bring so much of the personality of this time period. You talk about these festivals. I recently watched, again, Apocalypse Now. Incredible film. Bill Graham was actually an actor in the film, but He was sort of playing himself. And so he was such an integral part of that scene.
And he's an influence on it. He shows up at the last chapter of the book. And I thought a little bit, I didn't model the main character in this after him, but the idea is that he's a little bit of a hippie businessman.
Yeah.
He wants to keep his art gallery open, so he's trying to clean up the neighborhood a little bit. He doesn't want to be a narc and bust his friends or people who are peaceful, but he's very disturbed by the mafia, the cheap heroin that's around, the tainted hallucinogenics that have affected his friends. So that's made him become kind of a vigilante in a way. He wants to bring things back to the summer of love. And of course, a one-person campaign to do that is pretty impossible. He tries, and of course, every time he tries something, some other thing happens, or he gets led into another thing. One good deed deserves another, but no good deed goes unpunished.
You're definitely the only writer ever to employ the terms vigilante with summer of love. So I'll give you that credit. So hey,
not a vigilante like Charles.
No,
Johnson.
I get it. I'm
there's plenty of action.
It's more more that he's just cleaning up what he sees as wrongdoers.
Yeah.
And he's making a distinction between people who are hippies and using drugs and people who are selling bad drugs and taking advantage of people.
You're listening to Eco-Justice Radio, a listener-supported media outlet. Please consider making a donation to ensure that we can continue to provide socially and environmentally driven content. Donations can be made at ecojusticeradio.org and SoCal350.org for an extended version of this interview, as well as other benefits. We encourage you to become a member of our Patreon at patreon.com/EcoJusticeRadio. Today you're listening to Peace, Love, and Hate, a literary visit to San Francisco's hippie haven. I'm your host, Jack Eidt, and we feature a conversation with literary author Max Talley about his latest novel set in Haight-Ashbury in 1969, mixed with voices and music from that time. This is Howl, a fragment from a reading at Reed College, recorded in 1956.
Purgatoried their torsos night after night with dreams, with drugs, with waking nightmares, incomparable blind streets of shuddering cloud and lightning in the mind, leaping toward poles of Canada and Patterson, illuminating all the motionless world of time between. Peyote solidities of halls, backyard green tree cemetery dawns, wine drunkenness over the rooftops, storefront boroughs of tea-head, joyride, neon, blinking traffic light, sun and moon and tree vibrations in the roaring winter dusks of Brooklyn, ashcan rantings and kind king light of mind, who chained themselves to subways for the endless ride from Battery to Holy Bronx on Benzedrine, until the noise of wheels and children brought them down, shuddering, mouth-racked and battered, bleak of brain, all drained of brilliance in the drear light of zoo, who sank all night in submarine light of Bickford's, floated out and sat through the stale beer afternoon in desolate Fugazis, listening to the crack of doom on the hydrogen jukebox, who talked continuously 70 hours from park to pad to bar to Bellevue to museum to the Brooklyn Bridge, a lost battalion of platonic conversationalists jumping down the stoops, off fire escapes, off window sills, off Empire State, out of the moon. Yakety-yakking, screaming, vomiting, whispering facts and memories and anecdotes and eyeball kicks and shocks of hospitals and jails and wars, whole intellects disgorged in total recall for 7 days and nights with brilliant eyes, meat for the synagogue cast on the pavement, who vanished into nowhere, Zen, New Jersey, leaving a trail of ambiguous picture postcards of Atlantic City Hall, suffering Eastern sweats and Tangerian bone grindings and migraines of China under junk withdrawal in Newark's bleak furnished room, who wandered around and around at midnight in the railroad yard, wondering where to go, and went, leaving no broken hearts, who lit cigarettes in boxcars, racketing through snow toward lonesome farms in grandfather night, who studied Plotinus, Poe, St. John of the Cross, the Book of the Dead, telepathy, and Bop Kabbalah, because the cosmos instinctively vibrated at their feet in Kansas, who loaned it through the streets of Idaho, seeking visionary Indian angels who were visionary Indian angels, who thought they were only mad when Baltimore gleamed in supernatural ecstasy, who jumped in limousines with the Chinamen of Oklahoma on the impulse of winter, midnight, street light, small town, rain, who lounged hungry and lonesome through Houston seeking jazz or sex or soup, and followed the brilliant Spaniard to converse about America and eternity, a hopeless task, and so took ship to Africa, who disappeared into the volcanoes of Mexico, leaving behind nothing but the shadow of dungarees and the lava and ash of poetry scattered in fireplace Chicago, who reappeared on the West Coast investigating the FBI in beards and shorts with big pacifist eyes, sexy in their dark skin, passing out incomprehensible leaflets, who burned cigarette holes in their arms, protesting the narcotic tobacco haze of capitalism, who distributed super communist pamphlets in Union Square, weeping and undressing while the sirens of Los Alamos wailed them down and wailed down Wall, and the Staten Island ferry also wailed.
So Eldridge Cleaver was an early leader in the Black Panther Party and became a fugitive from the U.S. criminal justice system. While based in Algeria, he met up with Timothy Leary. This is a recording called Black Liberation Theory, Eldridge Cleaver versus Timothy Leary.
We're sitting here in Algeria on a very sunny day. My name is Eldridge Cleaver.
Timothy Leary.
Michael Canis. We're discussing the drug culture and the American Revolution. I'm a fugitive, you're a fugitive. Many of our friends and comrades inside the United States are fugitives. Now, these people who are walking around seeking freedom and liberation through drugs, I think they are illusionary allies, that they're not really helping us. Merely by being there, merely by donning the guise of revolutionaries, by participating in the youth culture and the drug culture, I don't think that anymore, I don't think it's helpful to us. I think that the actions, say, of the Weathermen, the actions that the Black Panther Party have been involved in, the actions of other revolutionaries that are not part of any organization, is what the present situation calls for. That kind of direct physical action aimed at physically destroying the apparatus of oppression.
I think that it's a mistake for we sitting here in Algeria to be making pronouncements about what's happening in the United States in a general way, beyond this statement that the revolution is ongoing, this is a crucial period, there is not time to tarry. The taking of any drug which were postponed for 10 minutes, the revolution and the liberation of our comrades and brothers and sisters in prison must be eliminated. There is no time for escape. The use of any drug which takes your mind away from the basic issue, which is liberation revolution, must be postponed.
Much drug culture in the United States for many years was focused on you. You were the spokesman for that, and you have been looked upon as the high priest.
Well, that's image.
Wait just a minute. Well, but that's it's image. Yeah, it's image. We're also dealing with image. You see. I think that you're being evasive when you try to characterize that as making general statements. You see.
Yeah, I'm being very specific about this one generalization, that any use of drugs is either going to help or hinder the revolution. Now, if someone were to come to me and say, hey, look, I have a chance to give LSD to 100 FBI agents, I would say right on, because I know if 100 FBI agents took LSD, 30 of them would drop out of that plastic fascist bag immediately. So in that case, LSD could be seen as a revolutionary instrument.
Cleaver would later consign Leary to jail in Algeria, from which the CIA helped spring him. Cleaver at the time said, "There's something wrong with Leary's brain. We want people to gather their wits, sober up, and get down to the serious business of destroying the Babylonian Empire. To all those of you who look to Dr. Leary for inspiration and leadership, we want to say to you that your God is dead because his mind has been blown by acid." Well, 1969 Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco. You have evoked multiple throughout this book. You bring to life so much about what's going on in the streets, the people, great humor employed. I mean, it's very much almost written with a tongue-in-cheek sort of thing. What is it about the 60s? We've got so many things coming together. It's like, Vietnam, civil rights, the sexual revolution, the burgeoning psychedelic culture? What's going on for you?
There's so many different things there, whether it's art, whether it's movies with Godard and Fellini and Buñuel doing surreal stuff. It's jazz with Coltrane and Miles Davis exploring new things. It's art, it's the pop art that was going on. So all these things seem to get unleashed. And the hippie thing was one part, and especially in San Francisco, a major part. But all these other things were kind of exploding and letting loose, and nobody really knew what it was until long after it was over.
Yeah.
So I like that idea of experimentation, freedom, and just trying stuff, throwing stuff at the wall and see if any of it sticks.
Well, another thing I love about your writing is you mention songs like what they're listening to, like Jefferson Airplane and other, and it's like this constant. You as a musician,
Right.
You have multiple personalities. You're a musician, you're a painter, you're a fiction writer, and you probably have some illicit activities that we don't know about, because obviously you have that in your writing.
I'm glad this is on your private podcast.
But I think that's really part of the magic of this story is that there's a soundtrack there, and this is us. The reader is supposed to supply this, but we can also turn the music on, which is what I did when you reference a song. I would play it, which brought me back to that moment. I thought that was really effective.
That's good. I mean, that's good that you were able to do that. I like to use song titles and lyrics sometimes as chapter titles. So a lot of the chapter titles are songs from 1968, 1969 that somehow tied in with what was going on in the plot. But I think the story is as much about music and musicians as it is about crime or art or anything else. I originally wrote something way back 2014 called Dear Mr. Fantasy, which was kind of all about the music industry, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Could never get it published. It was too big. And these characters were in there.
Interesting.
So after getting Santa Fe Psychosis published as a novella, I thought maybe I can do this kind of shorter as a crime type thing. Put it at least in some kind of angle that editors or publishers can understand. That they weren't able to get the scope of a book with 5 characters in 3 or 4 decades.
But you don't look at the culture with the world that is being illustrated here. It's not looked upon with much reverence. So there's a lot of spiritual and social decay. But so there's this spiritual and social unveiling that's happening in the wider culture, which is kind of the big picture of what we here 50 years later think of almost 60 years later, the way it's working out. But you're sort of looking at sort of an underside to that.
I'm looking at the underside because that played into a story of adventures and crime and action and things happening constantly. I easily could have written a summer of love romance kind of thing where 2 hippies drive out to California and live together. That's a viable thing. There's so many ways you can look at it. It just happened to be this worked best for me. So it's not that I see everything as negative in the 60s, but just that particular time, those 6 months. You have to understand that's after Martin Luther King, after the original RFK, the good RFK, was assassinated. The Tet Offensive, Vietnam getting much darker, Nixon taking over and being actually worse than LBJ. So you have all these things in the culture that are pointing toward a darkness, and I felt like I had to comment on that. You know, even though I'm pro-hippie, pro-beatnik, the idea, before they were even called hippies, of just dropping out of society and going somewhere else and getting out of the 9-to-5 job, I mean, that's a glorious idea. So I'm totally behind that. It's just when so many people did that, a lot of other people said, wow, we can make some money off this, or we can power over these people. It brought a whole other slew of parasites along with it. Gullible young people who are often on drugs and are looking for enlightenment. So you got gurus, you've got Charlie Manson cult leaders, and they prey on that. So I was hoping to more point at those as the rotting core of the 60s more than the people who had moved out from Kansas or the Midwest to find enlightenment and to get away from the stupid 9-to-5 world that their parents had sort of sold them, but they saw no joy in.
Well, I think what this brings to mind, I think of Jack Kerouac's Evolution, which he's a full generation before this, but he came in this whole beatnik thing and it was in San Francisco and in this spiritual thing, and everything about his later writings is like so heavy with alcoholism and depression and sadness, still trying to live that ideal life, but yet missing at every turn.
Right, it's dark. Big Sur is a very dark book, and it's beautiful, but it's depressing as hell, because you can search for enlightenment and bliss, but it doesn't mean you get it. It's like chasing the sunset. You can only chase it for so long till it gets dark. And I think that's what happened in the 60s. They had a moment there in maybe 66, 67, and then various factors. I mean, you're in a huge city, San Francisco, and its history is like the Barbary Coast. I mean, the pirates and so.
Well, and this is like a modern-day Barbary Coast. Sometimes
it is.
You've got.
It is. I thought of that. I saw an old movie with Edward G. Robinson.
Yeah, of course, great movie. Yes, I've seen it.
So, anyway, you're in a city which has a savage past and a lawless past, and you're bringing in peace and love vibes. At a certain point, you're going to have to come up against.
But it's always been a city that's been built on hope, because the gold rush people came out there, and how many of them failed? And then,
true.
And then in came, like you were saying, the poets.
The spirit.
They envisioned something different, and that failed. And so it's only, and this story is kind of like right on the cusp of that transition from, maybe this could be hopeful, to the point where, we all got into greed and plastics.
But you can see it in music and elsewhere where people Beatles were smoking pot with Bob Dylan. Then the next minute they're tripping. And then it's like David Crosby's on heroin, and, things got serious in the drug world. From let's try something and expand our consciousness, let's go to another level in our creativity, until the main thing is to take the drugs, just take that ride. Instead of using that as a launching pad to go to your own creativity, it became the thing itself.
Well, there's a lot of talk about MK Ultra, the use of these psychedelics as a way to manipulate people. And there's some documentaries out there that have been made that look into the manipulation of these famous love Beatles and their use of psychedelics, is manipulating them on a political level. And I think that's embedded in Freddie Dorn. It's sort of like a takeoff on this psychedelic culture, but as used as a way to undo the revolution that was happening. And
they might have wanted to. I don't think Freddie Dorn.
No, I know that.
Undo the revolution. But you're saying the forces behind that,
right?
And certainly, but I mean, to me, the mafia moving in was because they saw money in it. I don't think they saw mind control.
No, but I'm talking about.
You're talking.
You don't deal much with feds, really. You have like.
No, I kept that out of it. There was so many, there's so many people in this thing. People have said to me, "Why wasn't like Bob Dylan or Jimi Hendrix in there?" I was like,
"Well, you mentioned Crosby. He made no appearance."
The point is, the Crosby's in there, the Monkees are in there, a few other rock stars are in there, Santana, because they were there at the time. There was no logical reason for Bob Dylan to be in Haight-Ashbury. He was in Greenwich Village. And
I love the Santana Blues Band, or whatever the early version were playing outside.
That was their early version.
Where they got bongos.
I had to do a lot of research on this one.
Yeah, well, it's appreciated and really sort of creates there's also, because this climb thing, now we're looking at it from along past 1969.
Right.
It also feels like a counterpoint to the next generation of San Francisco, which was Dirty Harry, which was the streets of San Francisco. The portrayal of that is empty of it. These characters of the ones that you do are way like turned into total parodies.
Exactly.
You know.
And that was one reason that I wanted to do this, is because I think we think of hippies now in kind of a Cheech and Chong kind of way.
Right.
That they're just idiots who are high on drugs and looking for food or looking for more drugs. But the point is, most of the people who went out to San Francisco, they were either college graduates, they dropped out of college, they were in Berkeley, they were the intelligentsia of the time. They weren't these idiots. I mean, that maybe happened after 5 or 10 years of constant drug use, but we sort of see in the retrospect people in a more kind of Scooby-Doo kind of way, or Fabulous Freak Brothers, Cheech and Chong, where they're laughable idiots,
right?
As opposed to what was going on, in Berkeley with the free speech movement, with people being politically active, with people genuinely taking hallucinogenics because they wanted to break through barriers. They thought that they could reach a new level of consciousness and then move on from them. The point wasn't just to take drugs, it was to take them so that they could become more creative or reach a different level in their own personal growth.
Yeah. Lots of pretty interesting things about Peace, Love, and Hate. It's out on...
Three Rooms Press.
It's out on Three Rooms Press, available at your local bookstore or wherever you...
Anywhere online.
Yeah, online. Hey listeners, quick break here. We hope that you're enjoying Eco Justice Radio. Stay connected by subscribing on all major podcast apps and visit our website, ecojusticeradio.org, to check out previous shows and guests, listen to extended episodes, and get connected with us on social media. Today you're listening to Peace, Love, and Hate, a literary visit to San Francisco's hippie haven. I'm your host, Jack Eidt, and we feature a conversation with literary author Max Talley about his latest novel set in Haight-Ashbury in 1969, mixed with voices and music from that time. Here are excerpts from the BBC's Wicker World, Haight-Ashbury, 1967.
Haight-Ashbury, a crumbling corner of San Francisco, is where the action is. This is where the hippies began their march towards flower power and the quiet revolution. A significant part of the American landscape today, and a rallying point for the new and irreverent way of life of those who preach the dropout gospel. A community of beautiful people, or perhaps a dark carnival. In hippie colonies around the world, thousands of young people are joining this far-out pursuit of happiness. So, as the square world begins to adopt hippie fashions, let's take a thoughtful look at the love generation in full flower, walking off the joy and pain of being young and poor in the richest place in the world, amid a conforming society that distrusts the different. Where the living's easy, the job's waiting, hippies turn on, tune in, and drop out to show distaste for a bland culture which seems to offer no ideal beyond that of acquisition. Everyone's competing, they say, nobody's living. Hippie philosophy is hostile to hard drugs like heroin, but based on psychedelic drugs which provide instant mysticism like LSD, peyote, marijuana. They swallow these mind-expanding drugs illegally, while the coachfuls of tourists who daily come to stare at them stay legally hooked on booze, cigarettes, and tranquilizers. Hippies have a clear vision of the ideal community. Everyone turned on and beautiful and loving and floating free. They work a little, beg a little, and though as rebels they may be parasitic, they're earnest and peaceful, sometimes utterly peaceful. In Haight-Ashbury's street fair atmosphere, thousands of youngsters relish a love-seeking, free-swinging, acid-based society, while their leaders prepare for the arrival in this hippie capital of the migrant love generation eager to turn on.
The Haight-Ashbury community has created the Council for a Summer of Love in San Francisco. Within the Haight-Ashbury population, there are many strata of imaginative and creative energies whose spirit extends throughout San Francisco and the world. The people here today represent some of the manifestations of the Haight-Ashbury spirit and healthy activity. They have decided to participate in the Council for a Summer of Love.
We call upon the world to help us celebrate the infinite holiness of life. We ask all who come here to come here in love, and we ask all who live here to greet all men with love. The Council is calling for creative love happenings for every weekend throughout the summer. We are calling upon the forces of love, not of hate. We affirm life, love, peace, and self-discovery. The Summer of Love celebrates these values.
But also, I'm really interested, you were talking earlier about short story, long list of them. You've published also recently, Destroy Me Gently, Please. That's an interesting title. But here's the thing that I think a lot about Raymond Carver when I read a lot of these stories.
Well, okay, good. I'm glad you mentioned Raymond Carver because he had all these collections called No Heroics, Please. Will You Please Shut Up, Please?
Yeah.
So I knew that I stole the please from him.
Good for you.
But I like the idea of Destroy Me Gently. The fact is, if you get dropped from your job, if you get jilted in a relationship, you don't want it to be like soul-crushing. You'd hope that it would be in some kind of gentle or nice way. It usually isn't.
Right.
But that's the idea of it. If this is all going to end, if I'm going to lose my job, if my family's going to divorce me, if my relationship collapses, let it be gently, not complete destruction.
Well, here you are, led a pretty privileged life, grew up in New York City.
Right.
You live here in Santa Barbara and partially in Santa Fe, both places with little golden domes over them. But yet here, you really write wonderfully about these people facing serious difficulties in life, the sort of empty, dead-end lives that so many people face in this world.
Right.
And but they're also, there's the joie de vivre, of course. And so, I think that's what I get out of this Destroy Me Gently. A couple of the stories, you start off with Leaving Crawford.
This is a story from my collection, Destroy Me Gently, Please, called If You Can Just Get Across. It's based on it's a fictionalized account of my last visit to New York, pre-pandemic, so probably 2018. If you can just make it across 35th Street to 6th Avenue, then you can meet Sarah. How long has it been since you visited New York? Did you ever really know Sarah, or is that just some Facebook memory illusion? Get with technology, variable algorithms, the interlacing of codes. Same college plus enough mutual friends equals a vague past relationship. Jesus, go already. But you're still marooned on the east side of 5th Avenue, waiting for a break in traffic. A lone orange safety cone sits by a trash bin, signifying what? Caution? The whole street, the entire area is a disaster zone. Merge with the buildup of humanity lined on the corner, anxious, preparing to launch toward the far sidewalk. Grim-faced blondes in baseball caps and yoga pants lunge like gazelles. Tour groups mass around trinket stores while their idling bus sulks at the curb, and steam billows from manholes to ghost the faces of passersby with ancient subterranean hobo funk. Holy shit, look! People crane their necks amid the burning pretzel smoke to spy the Empire State Building, thrusting vertical above the forest of buildings. A subway rumbles below, vibrating the asphalt. Nothing is stable. The smell of grilled meat wafting up in dank courtyards from Korean restaurant kitchen exhaust fans. And listen deeper for the om, godlike hum of the giant industrial fans mounted atop pre-war brick hotels. Men in suits run in comfortable shoes to catch buses already tilting away from their stops and turning recklessly onto narrow streets. Dodge around the plywood sheets stacked for no apparent reason, beyond workers loading mattresses into storage areas, and a dedicated soul rummaging through garbage as girls in leggings pass and students parade in black-rimmed glasses. 3 jeers to the goggle-pated face. The dumbass white guys yell provocations from a packed car speeding by. Seriously, who still wears leather jackets, dude? High-heel ladies in short skirts stride with muscular thighs and black women sprouting dyed blonde hair that shows dark at the roots. Ignore the karaoke bars pumping out 80s songs from behind fogged windows. Is there a crowd? Is it empty? Don't you want me, baby? Don't you want me now? Irish pubs blast classic rock and doormen wave aimless cruisers inside for happy hour specials on well drinks. But their attempts are wasted on people texting, shouting into speakerphones, dodging and weaving around one another, distracted. Don't gawk at the man in a tank top with a non-ironic mullet, or he will wear your teeth as knuckle rings. Tourists roll heavy baggage and their facial expressions wonder, is this a vacation or a punishment? The thundering surge of traffic stops at a red light, but 3 kamikaze bikers speed through, screaming at pedestrians crossing in their way. Pedicabs dodge, for the moment, their imminent destruction by a swerving bus. Long rows of garbage bags sit, waiting for Godot. Seedy men chewing toothpicks hand out cards to secret palaces of pleasure, or some DJ rave way the hell out in Brooklyn. A female traffic cop scolds jaywalkers while signaling to oncoming cars. Some people wear short-sleeved shirts, others are in down jackets because one minute it's humid spring and the next, a cold wind nags at you like an angry ex. You realize that this area of 6th Avenue is now Koreatown because you saw it on a street sign. There are Japanese and Chinese and Filipino and Vietnamese and Korean strollers, and you will never understand a single one of their languages in your short human lifespan, but they're all shopping and talking and rushing through their lives and seem to have the money to thrive in Manhattan. European families stagger out of swinging glass doors to hotel lobbies, carting enough baggage for a month, past the Middle Eastern t-shirt gewgaw souvenir emporiums that seem to have multiplied during your visit. Sarah? You see someone resembling her ahead and you close in, too close, only to shock the stranger. Everyone is clustered tight in Greeley Square, but never ever touch them. Don't nitro their glycerin. And the noise of diesel horn honks, the shriek of brakes, the oppressive hallelujah of sirens, and foreign conversations all drown out the pings. So when you eventually stop, a hapless stationary man among the jostling movement of hundreds converging on your point, your momentary inconvenient space in their universe, you find that Sarah has texted you. So sorry, almost broke my leg. I should really see a doctor. Hope we can meet on your next trip. You are left staring at a gigantic Victoria's Secret video display, sexy yet robotic, wondering where you can find a small bottled water for under $3. But you're already drowning and lost in a place once familiar, where time's passage has rendered you a stranger. Let the current drag you with its whims, for struggling in the riptide only brings misery. Throw away plans, recede back to the tide pools, and observe. Smile. Youth is eternal as long as you don't try to hold on to it or claim it for yourself. Some New York friends never plan to see you on your visit, but rather hope to text locally, like Brad. Great to know you're in town, man. Cheers. Come back soon. Drinks next fall?
Lovely. That really is such a visual piece. I love it. And also, I want to get to, I've heard a little bit of something you're working on. Is it on Barstow? What is that?
Oh, yeah.
The Duke of Barstow.
Duke of Barstow.
Which I think, this is... That's a forthcoming project of yours, or
it's supposed to come out at the end of next year.
Yeah. Well, the piece of it, the section that I heard, Barstow is one of those towns on the way to Vegas. It's out in the middle of the desert.
Right.
What's happening in Barstow? I don't know.
Right. It's weird. I once had a social media conversation where someone said there's probably a Jack Kerouac in Needles or in Kingman, Arizona. And I was like, no. And so, but it made me think about, in all these towns, there's some little thing we don't know about, some bizarre, tiny little counterculture. I mean, maybe like a counter, a table of 4 people. But it was because of driving back and forth from Santa Barbara to Santa Fe, seeing the Mojave Desert, and sort of fearing it. Like, when I see the desert, I always think, like, if I lived there, I would just die. I mean, I couldn't get food. I'd dehydrate. It's windy. It's always over 100 degrees. So that's what made me want to write about it. It's sort of the fear of it, that it's sort of eternal. It's always there. It's at the beginning and at the end. And there's people who live there and actually want to live there, who leave the coast and say, I'm living in the Mojave Desert and doing my art. And, I respect that. But I don't have that courage.
Yeah.
So whenever I was driving, I thought, what would it be like to live there? Could there be this con man who lived in Barstow and had card games and had met Elvis and Howard Hughes when he was 20? And then I got into the concept of this guy writing about him, and it was going to be just a novella. But at the end, a few people, including mutual friends of ours, said, this has got to be a novel. So at a certain point in the book, the guy who wrote about, who's the travel writer doing an article, starts to write a book about it. And then I got into the thing that no writer should do, which is writing about a writer writing a book.
Well, what I've heard from it, just an excerpt, you handled it quite well, and it was fun. I mean, that's the thing. You bring levity into what could be
darkness,
kind of, depressing,
right,
or just sad, or whatever it is. It's funny and entertaining, but also, there's meaning behind it, and there's empathy. That's a big thing. Like,
trying to believe in the characters.
Yeah.
There are two things I thought about. One is Confederacy of Dunces. There's not enough books like that.
Yeah.
And then a guy that we both love, Kurt Vonnegut Jr. People aren't writing books like that anymore. Not that I'm exactly doing that, but writing a book where it's just about eccentric characters in their own little world, kind of divorced from the rest of the world. But there are those little worlds out there. And so there was a chance to do a kind of eccentric novel. So I hope that will be out at the end of 2026.
Well, congratulate you on just keeping that work going and publishing these multiple books and sort of being able to navigate the somewhat weird literary thing, but to find an audience and to be entertaining and a fun storyteller. So congratulations.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks for sharing with us tonight. Thank you to Max Talley, and thank you to our listeners for joining us. This has been Peace, Love, and Hate, a literary visit to San Francisco's Hippie Haven. For an extended version of this show, become a member of our Patreon. Visit our website at ecojusticeradio.org. Please connect with us on social media at EcoJustice Radio, SoCal350, and Wilder Utopia. If you like what you've heard and you want others to be informed, subscribe, share the episodes, and help us continue our efforts by joining our Patreon or making a tax-deductible donation to the show at ecojusticeradio.org and SoCal350.org. Project of SoCal 350. The show can be found on KPFK, all major podcast apps, and at ecojusticeradio.org. Executive producer, myself, Jack Eidt, co-host Carrie Kim, and engineer and original music by Blake Quake Beats. And until next time, remember, the power is yours.